Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Mental Cruelty, Zwielicht, out June 23rd on Century Media. This album has 10 tracks, 48 minutes in length, and this is the band's fourth full-length studio album. They are a German deathcore band. As far as the design goes, I felt like the album was a little bit unbalanced, and the reason is simple. When you look at the first two-thirds of the record, the album is very linear, it's very compact. There's a lot of similarities from song to song, and everything is fluid, and everything is moving in one single direction. Then you get an interlude track that actually feels more like an outro, and following that you have three songs that come across like bonus tracks, because they don't match anything that has happened before in the record, and they're very different from one another. While this idea and this design gives it a little bit of a lopsided style to the record, I honestly can't think of a better way to put it together considering the songs available. Where are you going to put these three tracks? They're so different, they're so unique, they're so dynamic, both musically and vocally, that anywhere else you put them, it's going to destroy the overall fluidity and playability of the album. So leaving them to the end is the only thing that actually makes sense, because like I said, it feels more like bonus tracks. So while I'm not a fan necessarily of the design, I honestly couldn't come up with a better idea myself. As far as the sound is concerned, this album was produced and mixed by Josh Schroeder, who also worked with Lorna Shore. So it's no surprise that when you press play, you're going to hear some Lorna Shore style sound and style deathcore. A style that it's very clean, very crisp, very well put together, able for you to decipher exactly what each element is giving the experience, either be the orchestrations, the guitars, drums, bass, or vocals. An album that doesn't have any dirt, that doesn't have any rugged edges, really well defined across all the different parameters, allowing you to see all the different layers, allowing you to see all the texture, allowing you to see what's underneath each layer without actually having to peel them. A very easy album to process, even considering how heavy and thick and how much volume it has. Having this clarity within the sound, within the design, within the songs themselves, definitely allows for the overall heaviness to not become a burden on the listener. It allows the record to be easily digested, easily processed, giving more impact to the songs and giving greater playability to the overall album. When you look at the different factors that go in behind the sound, you have to look at the orchestrations, guitars, and drums. Now, the orchestrations of this album don't run the experience. They're an added value piece to the puzzle. They add atmosphere, which is an important element for this record, and obviously they add a melody. But once again, they're not in the forefront. They're not dictating where these songs are going. They're more a piece of the puzzle that makes the songs come to life, have energy, have the right mood, have the right vibe at the right time. So I enjoy the orchestrational part of the album because of it. I also enjoyed it because it didn't feel shooed in. It didn't feel like they wanted to create a more symphonic, deathcore sounding album, and therefore let's infuse these orchestrations whatever we can in order to have that symphonic vibe. That's not how this album comes across. The orchestrations feel like they are in the right place at the right time in order to enhance the experience of the sound and the atmosphere and mood of the songs. Once you get into the guitars are driven, they're melodic, they're heavy. I honestly enjoy the acoustic side of the guitars, even though there's not much of it. I actually wanted more, because I feel like that's an element that they can play with and increase the dynamic of sound and increase also the dynamic range of where the guitars can go. But outside of that, I felt like they had really two different sides. Either they played more on the melodic side, pairing up with some of the orchestrations in order to really create a melodic drive that pushes some of these songs forward, creating not just hooks within songs, but creating melodic hooks within tracks. And then also pairing up with the heavier side of the album, pairing up with the drum sound in order to create some thickness, some volume, and making the aggression and intensity of this record come into the forefront. The drums were a big surprise for me because I expected them to be maybe a little bit more drawn out by all the guitar sound and all the orchestrations and all the vocals, and that wasn't the case. The drums play a big role on this record. They have a huge platform to play with, and a lot of the big volume, aggression, and intensity that this album will offer definitely starts and ends with the drum sound. Great drum sound, super clear but still thick enough, having enough soul, enough heart, enough oomph to have a positive impact on the overall sound experience. Now when it comes to the vocals, this is Luca's first record with the band, and his vocal range is on point. What a vocal range, what a vocal performance from the first to the last song. The only thing I will say is this: they used some clean vocals on a few tracks, really on a few tracks. I want more of those clean vocals. I honestly think there's more room for that. And once again, the same thing I said about the acoustic guitars on the sound side, having more clean vocals definitely gives them more elements, gives them more tools in order to make more of a dynamic experience, and not just pushing the range of the heavier vocals and exercising that range from one end to the next. Bring it down, infuse some cleaner vocals, bring some melancholy to some of these tracks, because with their black and deathcore sound, some tracks could have really used those clean vocals in order to emphasize that experience a little bit more. All around, I'm a sucker for this sound, I'm a sucker for this style, I'm a sucker for this overall production and experience. There are some elements that could be better, and you get a feel for it when you get to the last 3 songs of the record. I honestly feel like the last 3 songs of the record break the mold. The first 2/3, it's very hard to tell the forest from the trees because there's too many similarities, not enough differences. Those last 3 songs put all the way up front, naked in front of you if you will, the main differences and how diverse this band can be sound-wise and also vocally. Infusing more of those elements that we see in those 3 songs, the symphonic elements, the blackened elements, allowing them to have more of a predominant role and breaking away from one another in order for you to really see the uniquenesses that these tracks have, would give overall uniqueness to the album while still keeping the overall album connected. So I honestly hope to see more of what I saw in the last 3 tracks in future records, so that the album overall doesn't just feel too much together, doesn't feel overly cohesive. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Pest. Heavy, powerful song. The drums are insanely heavy on this track. Great guitar melody, great guitar sound, creating a little bit of a somber atmosphere behind the track, and this definitely helps the overall heaviness that the song already has. It also gives the song a little bit of a larger footprint, if you will. It's a very guitar-driven song with great drums behind it, pushing that guitar sound into the forefront. This allows for a more direct verses approach and a more melodic chorus, and those becomes the main differences, the main ebbs and flows that this track offers. The orchestrations are infusing epicness, they're infusing melody, but I feel like they have more of an impact on the atmospheric side than they do on the melodic side. The guitar solo works really well, really nice, infusing some brightness and melody to the overall heaviness and intensity of the track, and the vocals are insanely dynamic. Next you have Mortal Shells. This is a very melodic symphonic track, at least in its underbelly, and then he uses the drums to push heaviness into the forefront. This also gives the guitars more of a sense of working almost beneath of the drums, beneath of what the drums are offering. The vocals come over the top and they're right in the forefront, being the main igniters of aggression and intensity, and also creating peaks within that aggression. Valleys having a little bit more melancholy, the vocals change a little bit, impacting the sound as well, both of them going into a more somber platform, and then those peaks where you just feel like everything is becoming unhinged. Another track with a great solo, another track that has demolishing vocals all around. Last but definitely not least, the Arrogance of Agony. I feel like this is the darkest song on the record, the more blackened deathcore song on the entire album. You feel that darkness in the sound, in the vocal performance, in the lyrical content, in the overall atmosphere. There's just no getting away from it. It's just a song that just has that vibe all around. And because of it, because the sound that it still has a big sound, it still has a big presence, it still feels aggressive, it still feels intensive, but those blackened elements change the mood and change your perception of the song completely. And this allows a track that at its core, it feels very similar to the songs that came in the first 2/3, but then when you add those elements to it, it changes the DNA completely, and you feel like you're listening to a very different song all around. And that's what it sets it apart, and that's what makes it memorable. This is it, Mental Cruelty with Zwielicht, out June 23rd on Symphony Media Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.